Okay. All right. Welcome to this evening's session. We want to continue with what we've talked about this morning, following the schedule. And so today or this evening, I want to review what we did in the last session. The last session, we provided you some demonstrations of the platforms, those platforms being the Pega Academy exercise environment. They call it a challenge. Showed you how to get into that challenge. Look at the description over on the left-hand side. You see there, they had, I believe, 8 main activities, design activities that you had to do in the main area. They gave you a detailed description. At the top of that, they gave you a scenario that you worked from. And the detailed description had each step for you to do. It was very well written. It had images for you to look at and to follow. So you should have had the opportunity to go through at least one of those now. And if you get stuck, then there's video that's up at the top. We had Ufuk come in and talk about some of the really technical aspects of designing Pega. He used a lot of terms that you're not familiar with. He showed you some of the screens that we had already gone over, but he gave you a bit more technical information about that. So we'll continue with that. We'll have those 2 environments. We should have a 3rd environment set up. You guys may have got something from Axis. Let me pause just for a moment. Did you get an email from a company called ReadyTech? ReadyTech. ReadyTech. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If not, give me a thumbs down, because you're not supposed to get it yet, but they sent me one. So you actually did get it. Okay. So you guys received something from ReadyTech. Don't delete that. We'll eventually use that. That's for exercises. Matter of fact, though, it's the same exercises up in Pega Academy, but it's in its own image where you can go in and you can start it up and you can use it whenever you want to. But there should be one more environment. So that's 3. You guys are going to have 4 environments. The 4th environment that we're looking for them to set up for us is the team server environment. I'll break you guys into teams of 5, I believe. Teams of 5 so that you can work on your project. So just expect that you will get something else from ReadyTech that will talk about a team server environment. But for that other ReadyTech environment, don't do anything with that yet. That's just redundant. It has the same exercises that we're using in Pega Academy. So we don't want to use that yet, but don't delete it. Don't delete it. That's a place where you could go and do some additional exercises if you wanted to do that. But we'll talk about that not this week, but next week or the week after that. We have some time before we get into the project. All right, so today we talked about this morning that you will listen to the detailed summary document. There is a extra inside of the doc. You'll find the essay questions. Again, 5 essay questions. Don't do the 10 question and answer. 5 essay questions. In the orange again, so the role of the Pega business architect. And then you have a Pega Academy. So again, all you have to do is cut and paste these. It takes you right to the module. Watch those modules. So you have 2 of those. You should be familiar with this information. We've already talked about the Gen AI blueprint. I've talked some about the role of a Pega business architect. So you should be familiar with that. And they give you 2 challenges to create a blueprint. We've already done that. So you should be familiar with some of these exercises that you're actually going through. Answer all of the quiz questions at the end. Make sure you answer all of the quiz questions, because when you get through with all of your modules and you do all of your challenges, then you have a final mission to do. So it's a big exercise, and it won't unlock that unless you do all your quiz questions, uh, go from top to bottom to all your modules and all of your challenges. So make sure that you do that so at that time you can get into that final mission exercise. It's a big exercise that you do. So that's their way of doing a kind of a unit test to make sure that you understand that group of knowledge. And you have another set of audio summary that you're going to listen to. And this is from the role of the business architect in GenAI Blueprint. So that's what these summaries, so these summarizes this information that you should have read and the challenges that you should have done. And then you have essay questions off of that. So make sure that you do that because all of the essay questions, they have some correlation to the certification. And I need to know that you know everything there is to know about that. So make sure you do that. And then you add 2 more modules to do. So if you think about it, if you did all of this, this is a full day's work. Definitely a full day's work. Probably took you around 4 hours to get all that done. The meeting notes for this morning's session, they're out there along with the document, summary document from our lecture that we provided for you. So you have that summary document. You have the audio that's there and you have the mind map. I put it out on your channel for your university, so you'll find the entire lecture there, and you should have received your ReadyTech link so that if you want to watch it there. Those are the same, as a matter of fact, they're the same, but I just give you a link to it raw out of ReadyTech, or you can go to YouTube and you can find the same thing. So here's an example of some of you did the wrong exercises. See that 1, 2, 3, and it went all the way down to 10. And so I did the same thing to everyone. If you open up your essay that you submitted for October 1, and if you see this in yellow background with red, that means that it's the wrong set of information. It's the wrong set of information. You need to keep looking in that summary document and you'll find essay questions. There's 5. There's always 5 essay questions. There's no answer to it. These 10 questions, they already have the answers out there. So it's a good check for you to see if you understand the material. But we want you to do the 5 essay questions. We want you to write that information so that we are aware of, so that you are aware of the content and that you really know it. So if you see this at the bottom of your essay that I've graded and evaluated, then you need to redo it. And when you redo it, you need to make sure that you change the name of your file. Take off the prefix to where it's already graded. Okay. So where it says that it's already evaluated, it's already graded, take that off. That lets me know that you've updated it and you've done it. And I'll go back in and I will grade it again. And for those of you who scored in the 70s or 80, that's still in the purple. That's good. The information from the AI tool will tell you that you're on track, and it gives you a good description of what you need to do if you want to gain more experience. So spend some time in doing that. Remember, our goal is to pass the certification the first time for both the BA and the SAE, and it requires this level of dedication in order for you to do that. For today's session, we'll take a look at this information, or I've already reviewed this information for you. But more importantly, this is the summary information from day 1. Remember, that was the 3.5-hour video that you had to watch. It gave you an overview of everything. It talked about the interview process. So I'm going to spend about 30 minutes talking about the interview process. All of the other activities here you should have done, or you should have complete, or you should complete it by Wednesday's class, because you're going to have 3 essays on Wednesday. So I want to challenge you, and I want to encourage you. Make sure that you stay on track, because if not, you're going to get behind fairly quickly. And this is what you'll see in our next session. I wanted to show you that. Wednesday, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 essay questions that we have you doing. You have 2 challenges that you'll do from Pega Academy. You have some Gen AI presentations, lectures that I've done, or we had one of our junior people do as they went through the program and passed all of their certifications. So you'll see these 2 presentations. They're either by me or they're either by someone who had just gone through this. Matter of fact, I think it was the young lady who got the 3 certifications, the 10 badges, and the 5 AI certificates. So she did a really, really good job. So we asked her to participate in some of these. Okay. All right, so we're all good with the time zone. Just remember that Wednesday we meet at 6:30. So even though you'll get something that says 6 o'clock, meet 30 minutes later. Matter of fact, I'm in Texas. I think I told you guys that I'm in Texas right now, but I'm going to New York for the next month. So I'll be up in New York on Wednesday. I'll leave in the morning, get there Tuesday. But my setup would be a little different. So I'll be in New York. If you see the background that's not like what you're used to seeing, that's because I'm in New York City. So give me a thumbs up or let me know. Has anyone ever been in New York? Anyone? New York City. I'm going to New York, New York, and to Brooklyn. No one. All right. I see now. I see now. We're going to have to figure out a way to get you people traveling. Okay. So you can see the world. But anyway, Wednesday, I'll see you guys at 6:30. Okay. And again, I try to encourage you all the time. Our goal is what? 2 certifications, 5 badges, 4 certificates, and we'll do the AI the last 2 weeks of the class. All right. So with that being said, let's take a look at my lecture here. This is from the day 1 lecture that you guys listened to, and let's go ahead and get into it. So make sure that you have your community edition open. You see I have my community edition opened here. I have it ready to go. I'm in App Studio. So make sure that you open that up. All right, so let me get back to the lecture. Project interview concepts. I'm prepping you guys for the project. At some point, with the 4 into a project, we'll be working hard and heavy into that. And you should be fairly knowledgeable about some of the Pega assets, how to create a case, an application, a case life cycle, create processes, create steps. By that time, you would have done enough exercises that you have some experience, some skill under your belt to do that. But when you're working on any type of project, not just Pega, but any type of project, there's this interview exercise that has to happen. There's a business unit, there is a development unit, and so typically that business unit, most of the time, they are your customers. You're working internally, you're building something. You may be building it for the business unit, but the business unit may be serving the actual customer. So the banking, business architect, business units, they are speaking for the customer. That's the end user at the end of the day. With that being said, you being the technical individual, some of you will be technical, some of you will be business, but if you're the technical individual, there's a level of interviewing that has to happen. Interviewing to where you, from a technical perspective, will understand what the business is requiring. Now, you being a business person, for Pega being a business Pega architect, it's your responsibility to interview the user, to understand the customer. What is it that the customer wants? What is the customer looking for? So we'll then see that and how we'll use the App Studio, and we'll use Dev Studio as a collaborative tool to put in things like user stories. What is a use case? User stories. We'll start building those, and it gives us an idea of how we're going to translate all of that information into a Pega solution. So we call this project interview concepts. We'll talk about Pega Express Delivery. You should know by now there are 4 phases of the Pega Express Delivery. It is an approach. It's not a methodology. There are activities that are associated with each one of the approaches. We'll talk about direct capture objectives, how we have this session to allow us to glean and pull information as part of the interviewing process so that we can take those words and convert them into artifacts in Pega. User stories will help us do that. They tell the story, they tell a journey. Well, how does this particular user or persona, how do they touch the case as it goes across the life cycle? That's a portion of a user story. User stories make up, multiple user stories will make up a use case. So a use case says these are all the things that we need an AI to do, or a UI to do, or a back-end processing to do. And what type of artifacts do we have to support that? We have tools built in the Pega called Estimation Tool. That tool will allow you to estimate the size of your project. And that's important because size and resources determine money and duration, how long it takes, how much we have to pay people. So the interviewing process is core to Pega Express. We call it PED, Pega Express Delivery. It's an approach. And we utilize these concepts like DCO, direct capture objective, to help us to design our system, to develop our solution so that it's implementing the best practices of the Pega technology. So what do? We identify business outcome. Business outcome, you'll learn, and we've talked about it, it's a case type. It's one of those processes that have a case life cycle that starts at new, open, pending, resolved. And so it is a case that is within an application. We call that a business outcome. To have a business outcome, you have to capture requirements, write specifications, have flow charts. Some of your old legacy systems already have those. If you're doing a new application and you're doing it with Pega, you don't have to write it in a Word document. You'll see where you can write it into one of the artifacts itself, one of the steps. Every step that we have in Pega gives you a place to write a requirement, to write a specification. And since it's part of the step, we know that a step in a different view is inside of a flow rule that looks like a flow chart. Now it's one of those shapes, and we see where it is within the process, contained within a certain stage going forward. And we want to eventually, we have all of that information, we can implement our application. The features we need to implement, we can do that with the Dev Studio. We look at that particular view as the implementation view. We see the classes, we see the class hierarchy that it's built upon, the layers of the situational layer cake, and there we go in and we configure the rules. PED, Pega Express Delivery phases. You should have read about that. You should have listened some of the audio, some of the lectures about this already. There are 4 phases, and this is certification information. So you need to know this information. Number 1 is discovery. Number 2 is prepare. Number 3 is build. Number 4 is adopt. So what happens? What are the activities? When they ask you questions on the certification, they're wanting to ask you scenarios or what activities are actually there. So an activity that happens at the first phase, we call it a phase, 4 phases, is the discovery phase. Well, that's the initialization of the project, getting the teams together, trying to understand what is it that the business really wants, what's the outcome, what are we trying to achieve. Have a look at those micro journeys. Remember, micro journeys, minimal lovable products. Micro journeys are 1 or more case types. What are those that we are trying to kick off? What do we need to look at? We're going to make sure that we identify our platform. Of course, it's Pega. Some things will be done with App Studio. Some things will be done with Dev Studio. And we look at the 3 main components. And you'll find this throughout all of our methodologies when we talk about Pega and all of our delivery approaches. And even on the certification, they'll ask you the question, what are the 3 major components that we look at or we talk about in Pega technology that Pega Express Delivery talks about? It's micro journeys, personas or channels, data and integration. Write that down. Make sure you get that. Micro channel, micro journeys, personas, channels, data and integration. Those are the 3 major components that we build around, that we look at when we're building out a Pega solution. Well, a micro journey is what? Again, it's a case type. It's 1 or more case types that we are looking at. It's our journey. Micro means small journey. I may have an application. When I created the blueprint, it had 4 case types. So within that application, one of the micro journeys would be one of those case types. Or it could be that case type that called the second case type. So that's a micro journey. Personas, remember, that's the grouping of people that carry out similar activities as a user. So we may have a persona for a service representative. We may have a persona for a bank manager that does certain types of approval. So those are personas. Channels indicates how is it delivered? What platform is it delivered on? Is it on a desktop channel? Is it on a mobile tablet channel? Is it on a mobile phone channel? Those are different channels that we talk about for those personas. And then data and integrations, we know what that is. Data is the reason that we even build a solution. We want to capture information. Data is information. Integration says, is it my native information or do I need to integrate with some external data source? For instance, in a bank, all banks, if you're going for a loan at a bank, they want to know your credit score in the United States. Well, banks don't keep the credit score. We have other third-party agencies that will keep your credit score. So they have to use an integration, a connector services. Web services is what that's called in other technologies. Web services in Pega, we call it integrations. Web services there's a connector, there's a service, and they talk to that external data source so that it can retrieve some information back. So all of that happens in the discovery phase. That's getting it all together, assembling the project team. So that's the very beginning, very easy to understand. In the prepare phase, now we're going to kick off a meeting. I know enough about what I want to do. I've interviewed enough of the business unit or whoever my customers are to say, okay, we can do this for you. I probably signed a contract that says, hey, we're going to build this solution for you. Then I'm going to do a prepare. I'm going to have a kickoff meeting. I'm going to invite everyone that I need to invite that's going to help me build this solution. So that means I want to look at sharing with them what the micro journeys are. What are we going to roll out first? What's our minimal lovable product? MLP. I like that term. Minimal lovable product. That simply means this is what we're going to deliver to you maybe in this first iteration, this first sprint. We're using Agile Scrum as we're developing this in Pega. So we go through these 2-week sprints, these 10-day sprints. It's an iteration. What's my MLP for sprint 1, my MLP for sprint 2, my MLP for sprint 3? That's what we look at. We look at DCO to help us capture and refine some of that information to help us with the outcomes. And we create what's called a backlog. You can't do everything at the same time. So you want to look at what can we do, what we can't do, we put on the backlog. Maybe if we can't do it in sprint 1 and 2, well, on the backlog, we have something in sprint 3 and 4. And those are user stories that we're wanting to implement. And then, of course, is the actual build. The build will occur in Dev Studio, Discovery, Prepare. We typically, if we're a business architect, we're working out of the App Studio. But build occurs in Dev Studio for the most part, but it also occurs in the App Studio because you have to design it. Business architects, they have to do the design portion of that. And they work with product owners. Make sure they understand when we say a product owner, that's one of the managers probably at a business unit. They own a particular product. So you may have a manager at a bank that owns the credit card function, right? People come into a bank, they want to sign up for credit cards. Well, we would call that the product owner. We're going to add for them a solution that will allow them to add more credit card services for their particular bank. So we would invite that product owner and get some feedback from that particular person. And we go through that until we look at a user story. There's a way that you build well-formed user stories that we say they are DOR, right? It's the definition of ready. Definition of ready simply means that it has been written in such a way that it is clearly understood what is to be done, and it's put into our user stories so that it can be implemented. And then adopt says that we've built it, first iteration, we want to adopt that, we want to roll it out and say, here's a consolidation of everything that we built. We typically want to turn it over to the business unit to make that happen. DCO says what? It's a way of collaborating. And DCO happens from beginning to the end. So don't miss that on the certification. That's a certification question that they always ask. At what point do we use DCO? Do we use it in the first phase, the discovery phase? Yes. Do we use it in the prepare phase? Yes. Do we use it in the build phase? Yes. Do we use it in the adopt phase? Yes. DCO occurs from beginning to end. It's the conversation with the stakeholder that simply says, I'm going to listen to what you're telling me. And because I'm a business architect, I understand how to translate your words into design artifacts. So I'll create an application, a case type, a case life cycle. I'll create the stages, the steps, the processes, because I'm listening to what you're telling me in this DCO session. Typically, you want to have SMEs, system matter experts. So for instance, if there is a manager over the credit card department, he or she probably has someone on their team that's the lead. And it's typically not the manager, but the lead is working every day. They know everything about the product. That's the SME. system matter expert. So you want to get that system matter expert into this DCO meeting to make sure you can leverage that real life experience that they have. And that will help you build the user stories. You want to know, what experience do you have when there's a student that's looking for a credit card? Or if there's someone that's a homeowner that's looking for a credit card, or someone that's older, over 65, that's looking for a credit card. Those are different experiences. Those are different user stories. Those are different journeys that happened along the way. Well, where do I go? Where do I go to find that? Well, if you go into App Studio, let me get back to App Studio. Inside of App Studio, you can go to, and let me close this because this was open, show you guys how to get there. But I come up here and I go to the workbench. And in the workbench, right in the middle, you'll see work, because remember, a case type is where we do work, and we call it work because it's the process that we're trying to execute from new, open, pending, resolve. Work to begin, we want to resolve and end the work. So in work, there's a place where I can add stories. So inside of the Pega environment, you're adding the stories. You don't have to write separate Word documents. All the other technologies, they don't have a repository integrated like this. So they make you write the user stories in Word documents. That's separate, but we don't do that in Pega. A business architect will write the user stories right here inside of the environment. Now we get back to these three main pillars again. Remember, I talked about those three main pillars: micro journeys, personas and channels, data and integration. You should memorize that. Pega Express, three main pillars, right? Pega Express Delivery, 4 phases. Types of things you need to remember. We focus on what we call center out. You'll hear the concept of center out. That means that it's based upon business logic. It means that it's based upon what the customer is requiring for a solution. That's number one focus that we look at. So our applications, we're designing, we're building business outcomes that are human-centered designed. Human-centered design. We call that center out. Center out. You'll see that later on. So what is a user story? A user story is the who, what, when, and why. But we're wanting to do something. The who, what, and why. I said when, but who, what, and why things that's needed to be done. So it's going to describe a user story, describes how a end user uses the application. How does the end user use the application? So it might be that when you're applying for a student loan and you want to identify the bank, then you may want your application to pop up all the banks if you specify a region, and then all the banks will come up that will show you all of the loans that you can apply for your particular institution. Well, that's a user story. That's an interaction with the application. That's a simple definition of a user story. It is the explanation of an interaction of the individual with the application. So that's why we capture that information. It is the smallest unit of work to be developed. We can track it. We can put it in the backlog. Again, here we are. We have the stories. We have the bugs. So if that user story gets implemented and it's a bug, then we can attach it. Here's an example of a user story. For user story, you have the name that's here. There's an ID that's automatically generated. You put a description. What is this particular story that you're explaining? So as a persona, I want to enter the information so that the business outcome, and then you see the step fields will show a wills document, a trust document, power of attorney. Any other associated features that are there? Who's the owner? When is it due? What's the complexity? High, medium, or low? What's the priority? Must have, good to have? Do I need to attach anything? Any acceptance criteria? Any additional information do I need to put there? Okay. So we have a place for you to put user stories in the environment. So I want you to know that's important, in the environment and not in a separate Word document. So user stories will go in and they're put on a backlog. These are my list of user stories that I need to implement. So we put it on the backlog, and as we go through an iteration, we go through a sprint, we pull them off the backlog, we start working on them. If there are issues with them, then we'll update the bug reports that's associated with them. So that's the backlog creation and maintenance. That's the responsibility of the product owner to manage that and to keep moving things forward. So user stories, feedback, and bugs. I just showed you our Agile Workbench. This is our Agile Workbench that you see here. If I go to Dev Studio, because Agile Workbench is up here, up at the top. If I go to Dev Studio, Agile Workbench is at the bottom. I believe it's at the bottom left-hand corner. Yes. So I go to Agile Workbench. Remember, this is a collaborative tool. So what you're putting into App Studio, I can also see in Dev Studio as a developer. And they work together, they work in sync. Stories describe the requirements. Of course, bugs are what we call defects. It's buggy, it's not working right. And then feedback will say, well, how do we enhance this? How do we make it better for the next iteration? It's a good feature. Is there any enhancement that has to happen? And we talk about the estimator tool. Well, how do we estimate this? Now, this is not anything the business architect may do, or system architect. Typically, the product owner, LSA, they'll get involved, but they may ask you questions. How much time is it going to take you to interview someone, to build that case life cycle? All of those aspects have to go into here. How many people are on the team? How many cases are we creating? How many personas are we talking about? How many data objects? How much data are we needing to get access to? All of that comes in the estimator tool. Well, to get to the estimator tool, if I'm on, let's go back to App Studio. App Studio, when I'm in the workbench, I can open the application profile. So open the application profile. In the application profile, you'll see that it comes up with many different items. These are user stories, features, inventory, but we want to go to estimator. So estimator gives me an idea of my by release MLP, minimal lovable product, that I'm going to release. I'm going to use Scrum and Agile as my delivery methodology. Indicate the number of people that I have on my team. What's their skill level or maturity level of Scrum, working in Scrum? The environment, of course, is on-prem, means that our servers are located physically there. If it's not on-prem, then it's up in the cloud. It's in the Pega cloud. It's in the cloud. The duration. How long is it going to take? How many resources do we need? Well, we have a project delivery leader, business system analyst leads, system architects, senior system architect, UI UX designers, client resources. We have business analysts, system architects here, lead test analysts, lead testers. So it's all of that information. And so typically you're working with a Pega project, you're going to have at least 5 to 10 people on the team, even if it's internally, that are developers, that are business architects. So you typically have, if it's a small team, probably a team of 10. And it's probably somewhere around $500,000 to $1 million product. So you're learning this technology to build a comprehensive enterprise level solution. Our technical architect, we've covered it a bit. Ufa talked about it as he went through his explanation. We talk about the LSA and it being important to use the out-of-the-box features for reuse. They're foundational. And we've talked about the different layers. Here again, the Pega layers at the bottom. You have the organizational layer, the more general layer. We have the framework layer, divisional layer, can have multiple divisions, and then the implementation layer. So here they show an image of the more specialized components at the top, reusability or generalization at the bottom. So this would be more of the search order of the rule sets. We'll start searching at the more specialized layer going down to the bottom. Some images will show it flip the other way, except for the Pega layer is always on the bottom, but the org layer would be up at the top. They're showing that from an object-oriented perspective of inheritance. So don't get confused by those. If you see it as the way it's presented here, it's more of the search order. If you see it the other way with the organization layer at the top, then that's more of the hierarchical view of object-oriented inheritance. And I believe that's it. That's my lecture for this evening. And I told you I'd get you guys out within the hour. So that's all that we have for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your participation. I know it's been a long day, so enjoy the rest of your day. I give you an hour back, so you may want to stay in what you're doing. Start working on your exercises, finish those up. And I'll see you guys in New York on Wednesday. You guys have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.